Hello and welcome aboard, ladies and gentlemen, to a new and special series in the BattleTech universe. Today we're going to be talking about non-combat based craft. This includes police vehicles, logistic vehicles, construction vehicles, civilian craft, and even accessory vehicles. In the BattleTech universe, it's kind of important to note that there are lots and lots of civilian vehicles, and you see them all the time in the games, just driving around doing civilian stuff. So I figured we'd dedicate a video to talking about some of them, or more of a series. So we're going to go through all the civilian craft in the BattleTech universe, craft by craft, but I think we'll start pairing them in twos because they there's not a lot of detail on each craft. So to start the series, we're going to talk about the Motuo number 2 and the Flashbang ZZ10000. Now these two civilian crafts are basically kind of flexible. They're more of like types, if anything else. They are motorcycles essentially, or quad vehicles. There's some quad like almost four-wheeler like vehicles in the series, and there's even like a single-wheeled motorcycle thing, and that looks a little special. But besides the point, it's important to note that in the BattleTech universe, people want to, have luxury-like vehicles. And in the different eras, you'll see them more common or less common, depending. So throughout the Succession Wars, seeing the Flashbang and the Motuo would be not the most common of things, because not a lot of people are going to be driving civilian craft around that is, as you can say, luxury-based due to the sheer scale and her ferocity of the war. Now, as the wars simmered down and as production lines would vary, you'd start to see some manufacturers and factories be set aside to produce civilian-like vehicles. I mean, you're going to have the necessity vehicles being produced first, like firefighter trucks, police vehicles, perhaps transport craft, or those things will always take priority, and the houses can kind of supersede some of these sectors when the quote-unquote private sector in BattleTech, depending on the region of space. Now, a little bit more about the actual luxury line in question, the one we're referring to, or the two types and variants. These vehicles are luxury-based, and the reason why I refer to them luxury is because they're not necessities. They can perform some things, such as like transportation of people or individuals, but in terms of equipment and supplies, they really can't do a whole heck of a lot. And the reason why you see these vehicles pop up is because people get stressed out in this universe, as you would imagine. And in a lot of situations, there isn't a lot of entertainment on some worlds. Just like in our own, in similar circumstances, you get hobbyists, of different classes. Doesn't matter. Even different sectors of space will want to buy these types of vehicles. And what's commonly associated with the motorcycle types in the universe is it's associated with freedom. Much like motorcycles in our universe, well, I may not be the biggest fan of motorcycles because I personally see them as a little bit frightening death hazard, especially when you occasionally see a motorcyclist drive around with a rag on their head instead of a helmet. It's like, oh, that's gonna be a nice mop to clean up the blood after the mess. But I mean, they get the same sort of thing. It's very mirror-esque of our own universe. And the motorcycles in BattleTech represent the same thing. Basically, freedom, the ability to go where you want, do what you want, and sort of just enjoy the scenic route back home from like a stressful day of work, or perhaps one of those things. They're not particularly needed, like I'm saying again and again. Now, one thing they are efficient on, by the way, is fuel usage. And fuel usage is important. So there is one particular economical value in society that would become extremely important, and that could be fuel consumption. If you're not making a whole lot of money, if you had a little motorcycle, that probably requires a lot of low maintenance compared to the larger vehicles in the BattleTech universe, thus making it cheaper to operate and find parts for, hopefully. And with the reduced fuel cost, because it's more economical for travel and transportation of yourself to work, you could save a lot of money. So there is a big economic reason behind it. And that's also important to note, because we haven't really talked about this too much, but even though we should probably dedicate a video to the economic stances on each country and for the populaces, but that's going to be a time for another date. One thing important to note is being in debt in this universe is absolutely devastating. So having a motorcycle to get to work or do your basic jobs and functions, or just for transportation, saves you a lot of extra cash. And remember, it isn't just Comstar bills aren't the only form of currency. Every house has their own form of currency as well, and for people who don't use the jump ships, or don't travel, or don't have relatives or family throughout the sphere, C-bills probably don't mean they're still going to be valuable because they can be given to other people who use them, and they're still valued, but most people are going to use the traditional based currencies of each house or periphery state in question. Now, one of the families that produces one of these motorcycles that we're talking about, the Motuo number 2, is kind of ironically named Motuo Shang, so it's a family-owned business, is a manufacturer that started up in 2467. Trun Shang was the founder, and he went to the Chancellor's Court in the Capellan Confederation in 2469 to get the first contract. Now, a little bit about this family. This family focuses on handmade motorcycles. Everything is made to the user specification. They value customer service over anything else, and they also value the craftsmanship level. So they're very elite in the production quality. And this also displays a little bit of import because of who buys it. You'll see a lot of people in more noble situations buy these ones because these are a little bit more expensive than the other ones. They're not the most economical of things, but they are one of the more elegant crafted vehicles. They have a sleekness, they're very efficient, very well-oiled, and just well-made machines. They are just good stuff. The other company in question, they're more of the new kid on the block. Series Metal is the corporation's name, and they, by the way, a little bit about Series Metal's corporation is they're kind of a new, sort of relatively youngest corporation that's sort of the new kid on the block, like I said earlier, but they're branching out very fast, and they're also very, I'd say they're definitely larger because they cross over to many more of the sections of the sphere. When Sun Tzu opened up and changed up how the corporation worked in the Capellan Confederation, which is one of the chancellors in the Capellan Confederation, Series Metals was not one to be left behind. They were like, I want a little piece of that fucking cash. So they quickly started expanding into markets in the Capellan Confederation, and one of the markets they did expand into was, ironically, the motorcycle one. Poor little Motuo. They're no longer the only person on the block. Now, the little thing about the Flashbangs, the ZZ10000s, they're not as elegant as the Motuo. And one other important thing to note about the Motuo is the Motuo is based on technology that was old for its time. So in 2467, it was already out of date a little bit. And it's been, a fair few hundred years. We're talking like we're now in the 3000s, the 31st century now. It's been, 5 centuries, almost 6 centuries now. And they're still producing the same way. Now, gradually, the Fortiches, a little bit about them again, is they gradually change their designs. They're very elegant, very thoughtful designs, which is reflective of the very Chinese-esque culture of the Capellan Confederation. Now, for the Series Metals Corporation, they just began a massive ad campaign. I'm talking like McDonald's or Burger King going ham, basically, where they're just fucking shoving out ads left and fucking right, and they were just being aggressive. This PR campaign took no prisoners. The thing about the series is they're much more affordable and they're a little bit more reliable. So they exploded in the Capellan Confederation. I know I should be talking about the craft, but I do want to talk about the history behind it because I think it's important. They explode into the Capellan Federation, and they kind of begin forcing Motuo to sort of rethink their strategy. But again, because of that Chinese-esque culture, it's very hard for them to adapt, and they're very rigid in their line of thinking. Because again, the Motuos will always appeal to the noble classes, the more noble, sophisticated, and aristocratic-based societies. So they'll always have customers. Now, the Flashbang ZZ10000 will be much more affordable and, for everybody else. And everybody else is going to want those, and they're actually fairly modern. And the technology is a little bit sophisticated, granted, bearing in mind that they're not the most elegant of looking of craft, but they get the job done. And at the very least, a farmer could probably afford one. I'm even talking about like a lowly farmer on a planet that is a desert planet could probably afford one dirt cheap. They are pretty cheap. They go in different capacities like any dealership, but it is kind of funny to realize how autistic this universe is. We're talking about like the motorcycle companies competing. Like, you never would think that this would be a thing, right? But that's what I talk about. BattleTech has one thing a lot of universes doesn't. And not to dilly-dally too much away from the vehicles, which we're about to start talking about now that we got the general history done. And dog, don't move too much. You're gonna ruin my lore video, damn it. God darn it. Now, one thing I haven't quite touched up on is later, after the series started to compete with the other companies, one little fun fact. There was a quote-unquote rumor going around that series vehicles and the ZZs were not as quite reliable. Flashbang, and as in they would flashbang and you'd be dead as you crashed and the vehicle malfunctioned and died. So in order to hush up in traditional corporation fashion in the BattleTech universe, which is kind of grim and almost cyberpunk-esque in how the corporations function, they basically unveiled a new sports model. And they're like, oh, look at this. And then they're like, hey, they give them to the Red Lancers. And they were like, as gifts. And so that covered the news and sort of outshined the whole, people dying. Now, granted, series went behind and started fixing these issues, but it was important to note that they wanted a quick distraction. And in BattleTech tradition, they made one. They're like, look at this. Look at these nobles with all these pretty cool war machines. Well, maybe they fucking advertised them that way. You never know. The series is a little bit special with their ad marketing campaigns. But that sort of covered up the whole mishaps with the people fucking dying. And they were able to weasel out of another situation. Serious Metals is one of those companies where we're gonna start getting to a lot more that you're gonna start seeing and be like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? It's like, yeah, that's a good point. What is wrong with these people? They're a little bit sadistic, a little bit. Now, this distraction was almost perfect. It almost made it look like, nothing was wrong. And people began to look the other way, except for when they got to performing the stunts that they were going to display. They were having the Warriors do for, easy cash. And, of course, in more stereotypical series-like fashion, when the stunts were performed, the brakes malfunctioned and one of the Warrior pilots died. So, yeah, he crashed into a barrier, basically fucking his head splattered against the wall. And everybody's pretty much watching this because you're getting to see, mech warriors, these staunch heroes and knights, ride around on bikes and perform cool stunts as entertainment. And that's a spectacle to behold. And, yeah, then he just fucking splatters on the wall because of a brake malfunction. And series just fucking collectively shat themselves. And so that, put them in the dark light. So it's not uncommon after that happened that people go and look at series metals and go, it can be a little bit janky. The designs aren't that good. And so Motuo, like if I had to pick between two motorcycles, I'd take a Motuo. I don't want to make splat marks on the wall, okay? God damn it. Oh, the poor bastard. Fortunately, he was killed instantly, though. It wasn't like some of the accidents in this universe where he fucking was laying there screaming for fucking hours, burning under metal as crews tried to get him out. So, look at the bright side. He did die instantly. There was worse ways to go. We gotta look at the bright side of things. And that kind of concludes the whole backstory about the vehicles. So now, this is when I have my book in front of me I put the book in front of me now, by the way. Fun fact. Let's do this a little bit, because why not? It's kind of cool. So I put the books in front of me. They're always in front of me, and they're on my desk, and they're open. And I occasionally glance down at them, but most times I don't really look at them. It's only when I get to the stat lines of things that I'm like, okay, I do not know that by fucking heart. So, the fact that it uses European measurements already makes me upset because I'm going to have to Google this later when I'm running the BattleTech campaign, which we're going to do a YouTube series on, a BattleTech campaign. It's my first time GMing, and it'll be fucking atrocious. I just know it. Oh, God, I'm so bad at, starting things. I'm a slow learner kind of person, Like, fucking A, man. It's just gonna, maybe we won't record the first session. Either way. And that's the reason why I'm doing the civilian vehicles, because I'm actually looking up people. I was actually going to start a tank series, but I actually want to do the civilian craft first. So the first thing we're going to do is the Motuo. The Motuo number 2, which chassis is a wheeled and considered small. Its mass consists of 320 kilograms. Equipment rating is CDDD-B. The chassis controls are 23 kilograms in mass. That's interesting. They have all the fucking details. Holy shit. I didn't even see that. The engine transmission is considered the ICE thing. I'm going to have to Google that. What the fuck are the ICEs? I've never heard of that. See, there's things you learn in these little spin-off books. But then again, I'm looking at the book and now realizing that it says WizKid Games on it with Fan Pro. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Things are going to get retconned. So I wouldn't be opposed if they rewrote these books, because as I was reading through them, I just want to point out there were some huge grammatical errors and missing words in sentences or merged words, and I'm just like, the quality of this book, well, the fantastic cover, which is what I'm using for the thumbnail and the background, or not the background, but the thumbnail, is actually fucking cool. I love that artwork. I'm procrastinating, I know. Procrastinating because I'm like, oh boy, fucking European measurements. Whatever. It unsurprisingly doesn't have any goddamn heat sinks. Why am I not surprised? However, it gets 42 kilometers per hour with, or 42 kilometers with petrochemical fuel. Weights 0 kilograms. Interesting. Oh, I think that's, no, 10 kilograms. So 10 kilograms of weight for how much fuel it can contain. Okay, that makes sense. It does not have a turret, does not have an armor factor. So if you're playing this in game, because I like it, it's got the stats, right? I'm thinking about like making civilian vehicles, and I'm like, dude, these things are just gonna explode. These things will not last at all. I mean, they shouldn't. They're civilian crap. They're not meant to be armored, but it's got like, it has no armor. It's like internal structure armored value is 1. Oh no. It's just 1 point across the board. Front armor is 1, real right and left is 1, and rear side armor is 1. I may read through the BattleTech videos, but I've just never fucking got around to reading the civilian craft book because I had trouble finding motivation as to why I would ever want to know this information until I started thinking about doing an RP. And in that case, I was like, you know what, this kind of information is useful, so I'm going to actually be reading up on this, which is why we're doing this series in parallel. What else? It's not, it has no weapons. It can fit a crew capacity of 1. And the cargo standard is 24 kilograms. Kilometers of cargo. That's a massive amount of cargo. One thing I want to note, though, that the book already seems to have wrong, because in the earlier, when I was reading this, because I haven't looked through the section about it anymore, is it talks about that every type has different versions and different types, and they're flexible. So I'm pretty sure that some of this information could be inaccurate, and you could adjust them for GM purposes, I'd imagine. Because I see, in like, when I was reading it earlier, it's like, there's quad vehicles, tri-vehicles, multi-passenger ones for the quad, things like that. And it just says crew of 1 for both of these types. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's meant to be flexible. I'm just trying to think, because I'm getting ready to, or thinking about GM and that BT campaign. Either way. One of the notes features motorcycles, chassis, and control modifications, 1 crew seat pillion, 24 kilograms. You can go into all sorts of details about kilograms. This is one thing that sucks, though, is measurements and weights are sadly done in kilograms and kilometers. And I'm an American. I use the imperial system. See, it sounds so much cooler. Use the imperial system. It doesn't matter if it's better or, it is better. It's a bias. God damn it. European measurements always get me. It's either an Arches campaign or it's going to be in fucking my own campaign. Sorry, I just had to move my chair. Puppy was like, I'm going to get up now. It's like, God damn it. This is why I don't let Puppy in here. But Puppy now knows how to open the door, so fucking unfortunate, really. I don't even know how she gets the door open. Not to procrastinate too much. Now, for the next vehicle, Series Flashbang, the ZZ10000. The one that I wouldn't want for myself. It's considered a type-wheeled small craft, weighs 150 kilograms. It's a lot lighter in weight. That's important to note. Its equipment rating is CXXAB, and the basic weights of that's not interesting. The cruise movement points. Okay, actually, I missed something. The movement points. So for cruising speed of the Motuo Shang is 12, and the flank movement points is 18 movement points. That's kind of weird. Flank MP. Movement points. Cruise MP. Oh, God. Why does it move faster when it's flanking? Oh, no. I've got to read that later. Either way, this one gets a lot more fuel because it uses more modern-based engines. Important to note based on the prior lore. 1,282 kilometers with 10 kilograms of petrochemical fuel. That is significantly larger. 421 for the other vehicle and 1,282 for this one. Holy Christ. It may not be the safest, and you may maybe make a funny crash table. That would be kind of fun. The brakes malfunctioning. Can you imagine? I'm getting too excited. And it's basically just as armored as the last one. As you'd expect, motorcycles can't take a hit. They take a single scratch from anything. That 1 point of damage goes, the person just goes, just explodes. As the petrochemical fuels just sort of explode out because they're not really well contained, and they just ignite the fucking driver on fire. It's going to be really unfortunate. And the blast will send this fucking burning husk flying into the air. Oh, the poor bastard. Either way, crew capacity of 1 and 21 kilograms standard. So I'm going to say that in terms of this, because we need to be flexible with some of the lore, especially as we get into the dated section, which is this is Whiz Kids, and this is when things are meh, the dark times are happening with BattleTech's lore. So I'm going to say that these vehicles, you can change up the numbers of the crew capacity, and you can also dick with the cargo capacity. Bearing in mind, one thing that should be important is I think the Motuo should be the most customizable. The series types, I think, should be the least customizable, and they should be more rigid in their design because they're streamlined. The Motuos are handcrafted, handmade models, which is very elegant in itself, and I like the idea of that. If I have to ever own a motorcycle, the idea of a handcrafted one sounds great, except when you factor in for how much that's probably going to cost at the end of the day. Either way, I don't know. We got to do all the vehicles as we proceed here, and as I do prepare to get ready to do the campaign, as I make my notes, and we also need to do tanks. And one thing I'm going to tell you now, because I want to get this out of the way now, is, so we're going to do mech bay stuff. The mech bay stuff will always be on Wednesday. The bonus lore will be the vehicles. I have the vehicle lore started, and I've already started preparations for the Succession War era battle vehicles. This includes tanks, helicopters, aircraft, spaceships, things of that nature. And they'll be structured into that. So 3 playlists will be made for these things. So Mech Bay is going to have its Mech Bay series. That'll be a playlist. And the civilian craft and non-essential combat craft, which includes police vehicles and firefighter trucks, will have its own playlist dedicated as well. Then there'll be the military hardware, which will have tanks, planes, and spacecraft. And that'll be its own dedicated playlist, just to help organize it a little bit better. Then eventually we'll get to infantry armor and infantry equipment. And I think I'll make a special thing for that, for personal equipment. That'll include drugs, things like that. And just basically day-to-day person things, accessories and things like that. So a total of 4 playlists is what I have planned out. And I figured I'd tell you guys to let you know what I'm thinking about that. So we've started our civilian craft, or our non-combat craft as it's called. And next up will be a battle mech. And after that, we're going to be doing some tanks. Oh yeah, we're going to be doing some fucking tanks. I'm excited. I can't wait. I think tankus are the most kawaii little fucks ever. And there's a fucking gnat in here ruining my life. Oh well. Either ways, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's on to the next lore video. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, you have yourselves a good one, and I'll improve my outros one day.